So this is why I love bringing fellow artists in, because I don't have to tell you how close to get to the microphone.
Well,
I'm sure you spend enough time in front of a mic.
oh yeah,
You know, knowing
and
you.
behind it too.
That's right. That's right. So, hello, Fabrizio Grossi.
How you doing, Thomas?
I'm all right. I can't complain much. What do you think about all this? All this.
Get me out of here, please.
It's
Where's the bar? I don't drink no more, but I'll go for the bar.
Go for the
Just
bar.
settle for the sight.
So when you did drink, what was the drink of choice?
Drink of choice. Well, in Italian, I guess red wine, but the cool one from the north. So Amarone, Barolo, and Bonarda, Barbera, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, on the higher alcohol content, vodka, of course.
Nice, nice. Yeah, mine wasn't that sophisticated.
No?
No, people would just hand me a Jägermeister.
Oh, dude, I have a couple of episodes about that. But the bad thing is I don't remember. That's why I don't like it.
I remember it burning, severely burning the entire way down.
But he told me that I had a good time. That's all.
Yeah, you know, as long as you got somebody to reassure you, you know, the next day, you know, then you got to wonder, are they lying?
I don't know. My butt didn't hurt, so I guess they were.
There you go. There you go.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I know last year we had a big turnout for NAMM.
Oh, this year looks like probably even more.
It looks like it, yeah, really, because I know last year I had Larry Mitchell in here just before you. Do you know Larry?
Yeah.
And Larry and I were talking because there was 100,000 people here at the 2019 NAMM show, and I agree with you. I think there's even more people here.
Oh yeah.
Right
well,
now.
there's also the thing is that a lot of, I guess, inside of the industry, manufacturers and stores and retails and all of that are not necessarily aware of it. It's just that you know what MEDEM is, right?
I do, but make our listeners aware.
Okay, MEDEM is like pretty much NAMM for the recording industry, and it happens. I mean, it was because the thing is just like all went down the drain together with the recording industry. It used to happen around this time of year in Cannes, France. And that's where all the recording industry gathered, pretty much to do exactly what the manufacturers industry and the music departments do. With the decline of that scene, Cannes became, stay the beautiful city that it is, and it's just like an appointment for people that would like to vacation on the French Riviera, and less record people. It happens that all those record people, they like to give appointments to each other here, because that's where all the artists are. And at that point, since you got the recording industry, you also have a lot of agents and journalists. So the traffic, it's not only manufacturers, stores, retailers, buyers, and distributors, but it's also everything that happened, on the other side, actually, for people. What happened, actually, the music that you make with the instruments that you buy here, I mean, all that crowd kind of like gathers here now every year for the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, and it's been increasing. So that's why the traffic, in addition to,
and that's a good thing. I mean, to a degree.
Well, you know what? I used to love to go. That was like 2000s and so. You will come here for the week. I know it's kind of crazy to say I love to go to the week, the NAMM week, but I actually had fun. Meet all the people and everything. And then as soon as that week is over, you leave on that Monday and you will go to Europe to do the following weekend in France. That actually was great. Now we're kind of like we don't go to France no more, so we just have to enjoy California, which is cool. But I live here, so it's kind of like no big deal.
I'm about to say, aren't you right down the road?
Well, not really. Actually, I'm up in Santa Clarita, so that's it's a 60 miles drive north, which like we did last night.
You are insane for driving all the way back there last night.
No, actually, but you know what? After 2 a.m., including a stop in Hollywood to drop off our singer, It took me 55 minutes to get home. This
Oh,
morning,
that's not too bad.
no, but this morning to get back here, 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. Yeah, I'd say that. I think I would have just crashed, in a hotel or something, because that's see where I live. I live about an hour outside of Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
Love it, and I'm used to making that 55-minute to an hour drive, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have nearly the traffic there that you guys have out here.
Oh, no, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane.
You know what? I think the standards of driving appreciation in California are very low. Let's just keep it at that,
That was the most politically correct way of saying LA drivers
Can
suck.
I be not politically correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, there's a bunch of morons driving in California. If it was up to me, 75% of the California population will be removed from the DMV.
I would have to agree. I'm telling you. See, the closest thing we have to LA, where I'm at, is Atlanta. And they're every one of them are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I mean, they have no clue how to drive whatsoever. And it's interesting, or maybe it's just me, because I grew up in a small town, and I remember going and venturing out into the city when I was able to, and I remember driving in New York City the first time.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a trip.
That wasn't just a trip. That was like a life-changing experience, And in order to get to New York to drive, if you're driving, you have to drive through D.C. and those areas.
The 95 north.
95 north. I had no idea what a toll was until I got up there, and I still can't figure that one out, because they're supposed to take care pay to take care of the roads and stuff, but there's lots of
New York.
Yeah.
Oh, forget about it, as they say.
Forget about it.
Yeah, my people. Yeah, sure.
It's insane, though. I mean, now, and speaking of New York, that's where you cut your teeth in New York.
Yeah,
man.
actually, yes.
In the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were kicking ass on that bass guitar, man.
Well, yeah, actually, I moved to New York from Italy in 1990. Prior to, I was 22. Prior to that, I had a band in Italy. We were signed with a big record company, and this record company used to send us to upstate New York or in Ontario in Canada just to play and just hang around with other bands to practice our English. And that's where kind of like, I got the bug and everything. And, I see a lot of things happening, especially on the music level, that were a little bit more in tune with how I envision things to work.
Sure.
And when my band broke up in Italy, I decided to just, make the switch. And I, went to New York. I have some family there too. So, it wasn't that bad. And well, New York back then wasn't what it is now. I mean,
it's very different.
Still crazy. I mean, architecturally wise, and it was way more like older, like falling apart. Now it's like everything like.
Well, even before the '90s, Times Square.
Oh, dude, no,
was not the place to take pictures with a comic book character.
No, dude, that was a whole park.
No, exactly. I mean, a lot of crazy stuff, drugs and sex and all that kind of stuff in Times Square.
No, that was like Sin City. I mean, that's straight like on like right in Times Square. It was just
very different.
I remember one thing, if I may. I mean, that was like I don't know, maybe like a few weeks, after my move there, and I was looking for. I mean, I was just trying to catch up with musicians and all that, because I didn't barely know anyone.
Sure.
And I remember that I respond to an ad on the Village Voice about this band looking for a bass player and stuff, and the audition was held in this building. It was, for me, it was odd, because I mean, in Europe, rehearsal places are like generally like warehouses or like one ground, probably underground. This was like 12 stories, and on 12 stories of rooms, lockouts and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's the way it works here. I remember that I had this bass on my shoulder, walking to the place. I mean, we do the rehearsal, that'd be cool. I'm going back to take the subway, and there was this like. Dude, it was a scene out of The Warrior. Remember, like, the movie Warrior from the 70s?
Yeah.
This guy's, like, going crazy. I mean, just, like, yelling, and it's, like, some Spanish, everything. And they were just smashing windshields and stuff like that. So what did I do? I did what every good New Yorker did. I was just like, okay, well, if you do that, I'm Italian. I can get louder. So I just started, like, going, like, just, like, going crazy, just screaming, singing, like, jumping around. And funny enough, I had to walk through a bunch of these guys, like laying on both sides of the street, between this car and the side and the wall, kind of like they opening up, like I was Moses and, parting the sea. And these dudes were kind of like almost afraid of me, and they were smashing cars like total gangsters. This is like, dude, these guys nuts. But, okay, so I kind of like, that was my first like hands-on lesson on how to deal with the New York crowd in that area.
So in order to get through it, you just had to make them believe that you were crazier than they were.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's all acting, man. We're in Hollywood now, so I can perfection my style, but that's pretty much what it is.
I remember, because like I said, I grew up in the South, and saying hello to somebody in the North was very different. We got different reactions. And, because in the South, you say hello, they say hello back, even to strangers. And I said hello to somebody in Jersey one time, and I got the finger.
Oh yeah.
That was,
well, actually, that would be more.
yeah.
Like New York, when back then it was like it's not even how you doing or what's up. It's like you're doing, you're doing, you're that, or it's like the fuck you looking at, that was, You
gotta throw.
Okay. Well,
I get the Italian thing though. I mean, because I'm divorced now, but my ex-wife was Italian.
Oh.
And the girl I'm dating now is Italian. And but I went over to Italy, and spent a little bit of time in Tuscany, those places. Lucca.
Oh yeah, of course.
Beautiful city. I mean, for those who are listening, Lucca is a city in Italy that's surrounded by this enormous wall. It's just it was really stunning to go over there and see the sights and everything. And I went to Rome and Pisa, kind of did the typical tourist thing, but that's okay. I mean,
well,
that's what you go for. I mean, if you live over here, I mean, you want to see
the first time you go there, that's the kind of stuff that you do.
Right, the first time, right. I went to go see that Leaning Tower and took that stupid picture like I was holding it up. I mean, total tourist. And I got to admit, that's what I do anywhere I go. If there's something a place is known for, I have to go and I have to do that, like immediately. Like, the first time I played a show in Philadelphia, I ran up the Rocky Steps. I mean, I did, and I had the music playing and everything, and I was running up it, and the tourists thought it was cool, and the locals were like, "Oh,
another one,
another one of these idiots," But I didn't care. I was like, "It's Rocky, man. Shut up."
What were you singing when you were in Italy?
In Italy?
Well, the moon, it's
no.
No, Dean Martin.
No. It was. Con 24,000 paci.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. How the hell do you know that one?
Oh, man, dude. Oh, come on. You remember? You know the song?
I grew up with that stuff. It's like this. You know what? One thing. I kind of like ran away from Italy because in the 80s, it couldn't get any cheesier. Italy's famous from cheese. Maybe not as much as France, but we had a couple of good ones.
Sure.
However, the 80s were like, the beginning of doom. It was just like you couldn't get. I mean, when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. And I mean, actually, I was playing, I was doing my thing and stuff like that. But I'm gonna try to do something a little bit more, in tune with what I like, right? So I kind of like detach myself from the whole scene, at least of what's going on. Even though I still work today with Italian artists. However, it took my daughter to get me to rediscover the Italian music. That I was listening to, my family and the song of when we were little. And let me tell you, Italian music from the 50s and the 60s, absolutely insane. I mean, I don't know if anybody that is listening to it pays attention to the soundtrack in movies like The Talented Mr. Ripley, or even the what do I call it, the Matt Damon thing, the Bourne Identities, and all. And 007s and all of that. There's always now elements of it. And I'm going back to listen to these singers and stuff and these names that my parents used to mention, and the arrangements, the recordings and stuff. It's just insane. There is actually one singer-songwriter for Italy that I always had a lot of respect for. His name is Lucio Battisti. No, Lucio Dalla. Lucio Battisti. This dude, actually, it's like revered by even David Bowie being one of his favorite songwriters. There's a couple of songs that he did back then. I think one was called Mi ritorna in mente, means like it comes back to mind. And I think it was like 1971 or 1970. If you listen to the recording right now, it could be a Radiohead recording of 10 years ago. And the orchestration is like Stravinsky. I mean, it's just like all the odd stuff that the Russian composer used to do. And I'm like, I mean, I cannot believe that stuff was played on the radio. I mean, and it was just like major hit. I'm not going to tell you what they're playing now on the radio because it's just an embarrassment, even to own a radio, knowing that the radio is going to play that. But
nowhere near.
anyways, you know.
No, but you know, I kind of had to dive head first into that culture. You know, if you're going to marry an Italian woman, you got to know a little bit about it. You know,
That's why I didn't.
that's why you.
No,
did.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. My first wife was Italian. That's why it was my ex-wife. No, I'm just kidding.
My goodness, you
No,
know.
good. I love my people. I'm just, you know, I like to make fun. I mean, I like to make.
Well,
jokes.
you can. You know, you can do that. You know, I tell you, when I went over there, though, I never ate so much food in my life.
Oh yeah, that's.
And if you didn't like they would bring out the food in courses to the point where it was like, oh my
Really?
God. I mean, like you're on course number 10 by this point. And if you're not continuing to eat on course 7, 8, 9, and 10, first thing you get is manja. You know, like
Then
eat.
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, like what's wrong with you? You know, and you're sitting there like, you don't want to know what's wrong with me. Oh God, you know. But if you don't, it's almost insulting.
Oh yeah.
You know, so they basically would feed me until I was almost on the verge of getting sick. You know, but now if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you were one of or the first, you know, Italian-born bassists to find that success on the international rock scene. I mean, you were.
Like I said, if we go back to those years, like
Yeah.
60s and all of that, there's a lot of Italian musicians and composers that I guess found international fame, and more like around the movie scenes.
Well, that's why I said that international rock and roll scene.
But
you
when
know?
it comes down to rock, probably, as far as bass player, I'm probably the only one that I know, at least from back then. You know, there were already a couple of guitar players like Alex Mazzi and some other cats. But as far as bass player, I think I was the first one to kind of like pave the road for my younger colleagues.
Well, I mean, you were working with people like, you know, Nina Hagen and Steve Vai and
Yeah.
people like that. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to put on the resume back in the day.
Well, actually, when I was in New York, I had a band with two other paisanos, you know, Italian Americans, obviously, not, you know, second or third or fourth generations American. And it was actually a good thing. You know, we played a lot. But then again, like it happens with band, people grow apart and all of that. And I decided to move to Los Angeles. When I moved to Los Angeles, that was like 1995. I don't know what happened, but within a few weeks, actually, I know what happened. There was absolutely no rock. I mean, it's not there was no rock, but those were the years where there was the confusion because you were coming from, especially in Los Angeles in the 80s, the whole hair metal, the whole thing. That was the rock city by epitome, you know. And then Seattle comes in, you know, grunge scene and all of that. So everything that was hair or whatever it is, it just sucked. So it couldn't even be mentioned. And there was like this void, you know, K-Rock was kind of like pretty fading out and all of that. And we're like, man, what the hell? I mean, I'm coming to the States to play the music that I like. I mean, it's just no rock anymore. Everybody wanted to do alternative without even know what alternative was, right? So I ended up with a bunch of other friends in picking up a night, Thursday night, at a club that it's at the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and La Brea. And we did a rock night. I hooked up with the journalists and the people that were like in the rock scene in Los Angeles around that time. And they were more like on the alternative scene. That's how I become friends. I mean, all the guys that Perkins knew, you know, Tequila Mockingbird and Steve Jones and all this, you know, the more like a punky alternative scene. And they helped me out to put this thing together. And every Thursday night we did like a rock that was like hard rock, heavy metal, hair, grunge, anything that was like loud guitars and all of that. That's where I met Mina because we were opening the first night. And on the first night, I actually had a great band. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional about it because it was the band of a dear friend of mine, the late Randy Castillo, who played drums for, you know, Lita Ford and obviously with Ozzy Osbourne.
Incredible drummer.
And a great human being. And he had this side band called Pirates of Venus. And they opened the night, you know, and that was the first night. For whatever reason, you know, kind of like it made a buzz in Hollywood, and you know, following week, 2,000 people. It was just insane.
Wow.
And that somebody introduced me to Nina Hagen, and obviously she's from Germany. I'm Italian. We kind of like we worked out the World War II issues, and we could have a conversation. And I invited her to come and play. She wanted to do an acoustic set. She did an acoustic set, but ended up kind of like jamming also with a band. And she says, I'm going to be recording some songs. Why don't you bring, these guys, you guys sound great. So we went to the studio, the Village, and we ended up in recording a bunch of songs. I produced a couple of tracks for her. And one specifically, I think I still remember the title, Live to Die in Berlin. It was a song that was written by Joey Ramone. And the funny thing is, like, she had this song on a little cassette from her answering machine, from her phone, and she was playing it back from, you remember those, like, tape player?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, the problem is the pitch.
I still have one.
Well, but the pitch in this thing, it was like a Z sharp, P flat, because, the speed of the tape. So you had to figure out the song. I mean, it was just 3 chords, so it was not that big of a deal. And we ended up becoming very, very good friends. So became her musical director and all of that. Funny enough, right in those days, I got my production deal with Warner, and that's where I had to leave the band. And guess who picked up my gig? Johnny G. That's how long Johnny and I go back together. Yes.
Wow.
And around that time, a guitar player in a band of a couple of Italian guys, funny enough, they asked me if I wanted to, just to play with them and everything. The guitar player, incredible guitar player from Brazil, was graduating at Musicians Institute back then. I did not know, because we started to play, and after a month and a half, I realized that this guy is Steve Vai sounds engineer and studio engineer. And he calls me one night, and he's like, I think still like around 10 o'clock or something like that. Hey, Fab, yes, I'm recording with Steve, and Steve is not really happy about what he's doing with the bass. He wanted to do the whole thing himself, but this song particularly, I think he really need a bass player. I told him about you, that you're Italian. He wants to meet you. Can you come over? I said, dude, it's 10 o'clock. Fine, yeah, but it's Steve Vai. Okay.
Yeah, you don't ask questions, just go.
And I went there, and I would say that happily after 26 years, we're still best friends with Steve. Actually, we're having every year we have our Italian dinner with all the families, and
awesome.
with other cozy uncle. And actually, each gave me unknowingly credibility, because back then, I mean, there was still the time where like the crazy musicians, stuff. And I've never really been like one of super virtuoso, but back then I was more into that kind of playing. And you record with Steve, all of a sudden, kind of like people think like, well, you know what you're doing, So that led me to start to get some other work from Italy and from Europe, and that's where I ended up in this session where Greg Bissonette, who recorded with Vai and myself, introduced me to Steve Lukather, and there you go. That's the other one, because Steve, again,
one of my favorites,
my favorite, and my, it's my brother. I mean, and we were born a few years apart and a continent apart, but we're just like inseparable. One of my best friends, as per today, one of the most incredible human beings ever. And what an experience, because when you start to deal with people like that and have people like that around, the bar, all of a sudden, it just goes up. And that's where kind of like my, no way of dismissing other musicians, no, but kind of like always trying to look for, that's what you
That's the standard.
A guitar player, one of the best guitar players I've ever worked with, and another credible genius, Eric Gales, said something to me like 2 years ago. Man, I'm just trying to give you the best Gales, right? Man, were you the smarter one in the room? It's time to change room. And that always stuck with me, because that's true. I mean, if I go in a place where I'm always the best one, it's not really much to learn. Yeah, maybe I can kind of like be the boss, but what's the point? This is not, it's not a matter of being the boss here. It's just, just to do something that means something for you to sing your songs, or to you to find your voice and being able to enjoy the experience with all the musicians, These guys are obviously helped me a lot. And I consider these two my guardian angels, both Steves,
I tell you, Steve Lukather, in my opinion, I don't want to say he's underrated, but, to the general public, they don't realize
oh, you're right.
how much stuff Steve Lukather contributed to that they consider like their favorite songs. A lot of those Michael Jackson tunes and things like that. I mean, that was the brilliance, in my opinion, of Toto, because not only were they, hellacious players live, but their background was in session work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you combine, I'm getting like goosebumps even just talking about Toto, because that happens to me all the time. But when you combine the genius of Steve Lukather with Jeff Porcaro, oh my God, I mean, untouchable.
No, it's just a different level. I think those guys were the Wrecking Crew 2.0.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the musicality of it. I mean, we can stay here and talk hours about, Luke and why I love those guys. I never get the chance to meet Jeff, but I ended up in working on records later. Funny, like I recently, a few years ago, produced a record with Warren Haynes, another fellow Southern,
about to say.
an incredible
Fellow
guitar
Southerner.
player. And we did this record. There was a posthumous Tommy Bolin recording. Tommy's brother Johnny has his vault of B takes or C takes, whatever,
Sure.
of some of his original, big songs. So we put these things together. We kind of like baked the tape, brought everything back to life, and we invited a bunch of friends and a bunch of colleagues to kind of interact with Tommy on the original recordings. And so we got, Joe Bonamassa and, Derek Trucks, Snowy, Steve Morse, and, Glenn Hughes.
Oh,
and all
Steve
those guys.
Morse, wow.
And the funny thing is, on this song, Strut, the original drumming was by Jeff Porcaro. And you have to understand that these are like late 60s, like early 70s, mid 70s sometimes. So sometimes we're recording, drums, two microphones. These are takes that were not meant to be records, Back then, you go to a big studio to cut even demos, so everything was properly done. And we open up these tracks and it's two drums and it's just like I'm hearing, dude, that sounds like Porcaro Warren. It is Porcaro. What? Dude, I need to get a look on this. And I mean, he kind of like loved me and cursed me at the same time because I choose that song for him to play on it, because he did not know which song he was going to play. He came to the studio, and as soon as I played the tape, which, okay, this is the stuff, you need to do your thing. Don't worry about what Tommy did and all of that. As soon as he heard the first two bars, it's just like, man, Fat, the fuck is the drummer, man? Like that. And I go, why? There's only one person I know can swing like that. And I go, well, that's the treat. Dude, he started crying. It was just insane. So we had a great time. And, the thing is about the interaction with those guys, because the thing is, like, you can get incredible studio musicians or incredible musicians around the world everywhere. And here on this floor, probably walking by now, you find geniuses.
That's right.
However, the secret is that was not a band or a group of musicians that, super talented. They go in one at a time, they do whatever they need to do, and they're so good, everything is perfect, and you put it together and it's fine and put that. No, it was the actual interaction between those guys. The dialogue, the music, the musicality that was coming out of, Luke's rhythm and Porcaro groove. It's just ridiculous. Right?
I found I mentioned this on another interview as well, but since it's come back up, I'm going to go there again. But I found the isolated tracks to Rosanna a while back, and that was just, I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, I would love to see a band today
No.
do that.
You won't.
No.
No, sorry.
No way. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a lot of great players out there, but I tell you, and we're good. But, when it came down to the drum part, I tell you, I've met drummers who sit there and go, I could play that.
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay. That is a difficult part. It's two drum parts combined into one. It's the shuffle, and it's blended together, and it's so hard to play that. And Porcaro made stuff like that just very easy.
Oh no, that was in his DNA, man.
But Lukather, and I took a little. I got to admit, I took a little list here. I was looking at some of the people that you worked with. Neil Sean, Steve Lukather, Michael Landon, Slash. You did stuff with George Clinton, Ice-T, Cypress Hill. This is all huge stuff, man. But all of that is wonderful. Your production work, man.
Thank you.
Your production work is genius.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
I would. Some of it is just absolutely outstanding stuff.
Thanks.
No doubt about it. When did you get into producing? And
Well, actually, I guess that was the blessing in disguise. Growing up in Italy and being a rock guy, Italy wasn't a rock place.
no,
So it's time to cut your first demo, or you wanted to record a few songs with your band. You go to the studio, you bring a record. It's just like, we want to get something. Obviously, we understand that that's a record, and
Right.
Whatever. We're going in for an afternoon. You cannot expect to get total four. But kind of like that's the idea, and people will the engineer will go completely the opposite. I mean, and just start to give you shit about why that's wrong, and that you don't, because pop market or whatever it is completely different. So I kind of like have to learn to do things myself. Says, okay, you don't want to turn it up that much, but no, you cannot put it to red. Yeah, well, I cannot turn it up to red, but when it's in red, for me, sounds better. No, it's distorting. Well, so I kind of. It grow on me, and I'm not really, a lot of people say, oh, Fabrizio, you're an engineer. No, I'm not an engineer. I'm an engineer by need, because I needed to.
What does that matter? I mean,
yeah, because there's a major difference. I mean, I think, for example, that a record, it's better mixed by a producer than not by an engineer. And all my engineer colleagues, please don't hate me with that, because they understand why.
They get it.
Because an engineer will approach the production of a mix of a record in terms of sounds, where everything needs to go and stuff. And so you get stuff, sometimes the sounds incredibly, beautifully detailed and stuff like that. But sometimes most of the time, they miss this. While a producer, being there from the beginning, producer worked on the music, not necessarily on the engineering. He understands the arrangements and what the song is about and what is the part that needs to be enhanced out of the song.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily maybe the guitar just or the vocal. No, but the vocal needs to say over the guitar. Says who? Who says that? I mean, check out AC/DC. I mean, vocals is barely there. Why? Because the guy screams like a motherfucker. And even if I turn it down, I can hear it.
That's
so
right.
Just try to understand all the different cases, and I guess like I said, I'm an engineer by need. And I liked it, and I learned a few things. I'm definitely not the guy that can go in and record the orchestra and all of that, because but in a lot of cases, especially working with guitar players, like all these guys, and I do not know why I ended up in working with all guitar players. I mean, it was guys, I don't know, the guys was my destiny.
Dude, some of these are like guitar gods.
No,
in the
I mean,
industry.
it's just, I know, and every time
Wow.
that we talk about this, is like, wow, yeah, just kind of like how that happened. But I've seen how these guys like to hear the thing back. That's what kind of like I learned how to kind of like give it back to them. Maybe it's not the proper way, but works for me, works for them. So I guess it works for everybody. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not an orthodox engineer, and tracking, I'm limited in my things, but I guess so far it helped me good. Mixing, I'm really proud of my mixing, because again, I approach it as a producer, and I guess by now I learned a few things, so I can, I can get by.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, man, while we're wrapping this up here, but what's coming up in the near future for you?
Near future, just finished, not yesterday, but the day before, to record the last vocal track of my band, Supersonic Blues Machine.
Awesome.
And we just record the last vocals, I can say. So now for the next 2 weeks is going to be like a little cleaning and all of that, and then I get into mixes. Supersonic Blues Machine, for everyone out there that is listening to it and is not familiar with it, is a power blues, rock, and soul trio featuring the great Kenny Aronoff, myself on bass and BB, and Chris Barras, rising star of the English rock blues scene. Mm-hmm. And the particularity is not the fact that we're a power trio, because that's been done, but it's because we have a lot of sidemans and a lot of friends that are joining in, not only on the record, but live. Like I was mentioning in the beginning, Billy F. Gibbons is the one that gave me the idea of starting the band, and he's the one that has been playing with us the most. We've been touring with him often, always record song with him. But among of our guest friends, we had Robin Ford, Walter Trout, Luke, Eric Gales, Chris Duarte. I don't even know Warren Haynes, of course. It's a long list, and we're really proud because this is the first record that we do with Chris taking on the lead vocals duty, and should be released sometime next summer. So that's very important. We're also working on the tour for next year for Supersonic. In addition, I'm actually, for the first time, I'm working on a solo record.
Oh, that's great.
And on the solo record, some of the cats that you know, Derek Day, Stephen Perkins, Daz that you saw last night singing, and obviously Kenny, the great Herman Matthews, there's a bunch of other people. And this is more, I would say, my black soul, because even though I was born in Italy, I always loved and listened to, and I always got ticked on by black music. So it's like my kind of like, I needed to do not necessarily a funk record, but it's there are all those elements. So, that's what's up.
Well, man,
and the project is called Fab's Soul Garage Experience.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of great stuff on the horizon,
Hopefully.
man. I mean, last night, I got to tell you real quick before we close it out here, last night was amazing. You guys kicked some major ass on that stage. And, big shout out to the charity of the night, the Watts Music Conservatory.
Yes,
that's a great thing there. If you guys missed it, the Nights After NAMM was absolutely incredible. And, but the 2020 NAMM show is ongoing. We're right here smack in the middle of it. And you and I are going overtime, and I don't even care. That's right. I've already gotten the look a few times, but I just don't care because I'm enjoying this conversation. This has been great. Tell people where to go on the internet to find your stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so please join us, Supersonic Blues Machine, on Instagram Supersonic Blues Machine, and Facebook, Supersonic Blues Machine. Please like us and follow us. We need your support. We're also on Spotify. Our record company is Mascot, so a Mascot label group. So that's easy to find everywhere around the world. And when it comes down to my solo project, we've been so focused on the music that we didn't even get time to kind of set up proper channels. But I guess if you get to follow me or look me up on Fabrizio Grossi, both on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, you get all the news.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Fabrizio Grossi, you are the absolute man.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you
guys.
very much for being on Sitting In with Thomas Claxton here, brought to you by Gator Cases. Nice shout out to Gator for these amazing podcast stands here, and to Shure for the SM7B microphones that they loaned us for the podcast.
Beautiful.
We do appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.